North Dakota Spring Lake Goose Conservation Order opened February 18th and runs through May 14th. Waterfowl biologist Mike Szymanski goes over all the details in this week's program. I'm Mike Anderson with the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Mike, this is the 25th year anniversary for the Spring Lake Goose Conservation Order. Explain this.
Sure thing, Mike. We got to start this opportunity back in 1999 with the very first conservation order for light geese held in North Dakota. Important distinction is that it's a conservation order for light geese during the spring. It's not a hunting season. It's actually outside of migratory bird treaty hunting dates. So some interesting things there put in place by the flyaways in Congress. Started in 1999, enables us to have some extra liberal hunting regulations, and a lot of this came about because snow goose populations were growing at a very substantial rate over time, and we knew we weren't keeping up with harvest. And it was apparent that there was some pretty bad damage to areas in the Arctic.
Mike, is the conservation order working?
So yeah, Mike, the conservation order it's a great opportunity to go out and harvest geese. We have a lot of participation in North Dakota. We've got typically around 3,000 hunters out in the spring. That's, sort of a last 10-year look at it. And we're harvesting around, 60 to 70,000 geese in the spring in North Dakota. Now, what's interesting is that the harvest rate overall for the mid-continent population really hasn't gone as much as we would have liked to have seen after enacting the conservation order across North America and the mid-continent region anyways. So we've seen these population declines in the mid-continent population. It's largely due to poor production.
Mike, let's move into this Spring Lake Goose Conservation regulations in North Dakota, and why such a wide range of dates here in our state?
Sure thing, Mike. Yeah, we have pretty variable weather in North Dakota, as we're certainly experiencing this year. Our conservation order opens up this year. It opened February 18th, which is way on the early side. We've always recognized that. We have always had very, very few snow geese harvested in North Dakota during February. However, there are some years where that is an opportunity. We'll be closing May 14th. That's way on the back end as well. Even though our spring thaw is pretty late this year, and we're going to have hunting opportunities that are going to be much later than normal this year. So moving that back end date really isn't going to be helpful for hunting opportunity, because the snow geese are still just going to go through the state really fast. They're just going to go through at a much faster rate and be done going through the state probably at their same time in late April, early May.
So once the geese get here, what are some of the differences in the regulations in the spring?
Yeah, there's 5 differences from fall hunting. 1, you don't need a federal duck stamp. 2, there's no possession or daily bag limits. Another one is that you can hunt until a half hour after sunset. But the 2 really important ones for the conservation order that make it really successful for hunters are the ability to use electronic calls, and then to a lesser extent the ability to use unplugged shotguns.
Okay, and you have to also be HIP certified.
For the spring hunt, hunters need to have their HIP registration and a valid hunting license. For residents. For non-residents, that's the HIP registration and the non-resident light goose conservation order license.
Snow is going to be melting, fields are going to be muddy. Let's talk a little bit about ethics this spring.
Anywhere that snow goose hunting is going to be even worth doing, it's going to be very wet, very muddy, very hard to get around. So certainly taking a real hard look at roads before they go down them, definitely not driving off trail with trucks and trailers, and then also really recognizing that things freeze in the morning, they thaw out during the day and get soft.
With it being a different year, a lot of snow on the landscape, what can people expect as far as migration?
Usually we have pretty good hunting around the first week of April. Well, this year it's going to be pushed back certainly into the middle of April. And then when migration hits, it's going to be coinciding with probably a pretty fast melt, where we're going to have a lot of snow coming off the landscape really fast, and the geese are going to move through fairly quickly when they do start showing up in pretty good numbers.
Is there a certain part of the state where people are going to see the spring migration?
Sure, Mike. Typically, the spring snow goose migration, light goose migration is going through the Highway 281 corridor, through the James River lowlands in the eastern part of the state. And then as it gets to about I-94, it starts branching out more to the northwest and angling out across the northern tier of the state. It's certainly a great opportunity for folks to get out. The spring migration is always something that's just an amazing sight to witness. And
Thousands and thousands of birds.
yeah, just seeing geese fly nonstop for 2 hours sometimes. So that's one of the great things. Even though, I mean, when hunters are heading out and they're maybe not necessarily going to save the tundra, or maybe not even reducing the snow goose population by participating in the conservation order, they're still out for a great opportunity where they can see the splendors of the spring migration and have a nice hunt.
A lot of great information, Mike. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Mike.